What's up, guys? It's Marcus with Metaphos, and I'm here today with Kevin Wu, a channel regular now, I'd say. What's going on, Kevin? How we feeling?
What's up, guys? Good to be back.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, Kevin, today we're actually going to go over the first quarter post-nationals, I guess including nationals, of Edison and a meta report regarding it. We've had a lot happen just in the last 3 months, and we're just going to kind of talk about it, and I want to question you on some of your thoughts. You cool with that?
Yeah, sure, let's do it. But before we start, I forgot what channel we were on, so I gotta put my hat backwards.
Oh my god, dude. You're a troll. All right. I like it. I love it. Let's get it. I'm not even wearing a hat today.
Oh, awkward.
All right, let's get into it though. So first, we have nationals, which Bronte won with the Fishborg Frog deck. This was where it really kind of broke onto the scene, and a couple of different choices from how James Arc plays the deck. We see the salvages in there, the one of Jar, the one of Wing Blast. Really cool deck. I kind of at this point in time thought it might have been a little fluky. Like, it's obviously a good deck 'cause it's a frog deck, but I didn't really expect it to stay. I thought Hero Frog was better. And I'm gonna cover the top 8 list, and then I'm gonna ask you kind of what you think about all this. So then in second place, we had the Hybrid Blackwing. That was HT19, playing the 4 draw traps, and he had also just played 6 in an event prior. We had 2 Amaryllis, 1 Blackwing. Oh, and one of those Amaryllis actually was a Hero Amaryllis, interesting enough. We had 1 regular Blackwing, 1 Glad Beast, 1 Diva Hero, and 1 Vayu Turbo. The biggest takeaways I noticed from this event was Amaryllis and Glad Beast were kind of on the up, and we see 0 Hero Frog and a lot less Blackwing, or a lot less Vayu Turbo than expected. What are your thoughts here, Kevin?
So yeah, I guess multiple things coming to this tournament. To be honest, this deck was under the radar. But had we done a little bit of research, we would have saw James Arc did top the like a Gamer's Choice monthly with a very similar style deck. But thing is, majority of their opponents probably didn't understand how the deck works, so that surprise factor definitely helped. Multiple things happened prior to this event, specifically RBT LA, where Hector won with the 6 draw traps, and if you like it or not, I mean, definitely did change the meta, where putting draw traps into a lot of decks started becoming very popular. And we, as you mentioned, you can see the 1 draw trap in this list, where that's very advantageous because you can play the mind games. Now all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe people won't respect their back row. No, yeah, I really like this deck. To be honest, when I saw the top 8 breakdown and I saw Frog Monarch was the name of this deck, I was really surprised. I was just like, wait, oh, what about Frog Hero? Like, is it Frog Monarch? Just like
Right.
9 Monarchs and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, really insane deck, to be honest. And as for the other decks, the biggest takeaway is just like, oh, to be honest, Diva Hero and Glad Beast sneaking in is really insane. I know those decks have a very big problem versus Vayu Turbo, but I think they probably got a lot of advantage from everyone dropping Vayu Turbo coming into this event.
Yeah, no, and I think the most interesting things was everyone post nationals was saying Blackwing's best deck. That's why Glad Beast wouldn't stick around, and that the fact that Amma also wouldn't stick around because Blackwing's just good into those decks. But then I feel like it was overblown that Hero Frog and Vayu Turbo were falling out of the big 3, and we'll kind of see as we go along how the format continued to develop, and how maybe some preemptive biases were made.
I do have a slight fun story about this event specifically, because the Vayu Turbo that topped this Nats was our friend Rick. I remember the night before when we were scouting for him who his opponent would be, and we saw his first round was going to be the Amaryllis player. Everyone was telling him how Amaryllis has a fantastic matchup versus Vayu Turbo, which in theory is true. Like, if both decks got to play, then yeah, pretty much Vayu Turbo might struggle versus all the big beat sticks. But Rick at the time was just playing a very a very standard list from back then, not from now, but he was basically meaning 2 oppression, and I told him, 2 oppression basically shuts down the entire deck. If they literally can't play, then it's kind of over for them, right? Like, all their cards stem from 2-card combos, and the way they beat Vayu Turbo is through special summoning. So I just want to throw that small tidbit in there.
Yeah, no, oppression definitely started. I felt like it was really falling off in decks in general coming into Nats, and it definitely post Nats starts to pick up again. So next we got RBT Maryland. This was the first major, I believe, post Nats, at least in person. And here we have OG's first place Vayu Turbo deck. We had 2 Vayu Turbo top, 1 Hero Frog. I believe they got second. 1 Diva Hero, 1 Light Sworn, 1 Machina Control, 1 Fishborg Frog, and 1 Instant Zombies. So the key takeaways I got from this is Vayu's not dead. That was overblown. It's not no longer one of the top 3 decks, because it definitely still is. Hero Frog is not fading away anytime soon. It's still a very real Frog variant, and that the Fishborg Frog deck wasn't a fluke. That deck, once again, 2 events in a row. This one, I believe, was specifically James Arc that top aided. That deck's here to stay. And one of the big things I noticed from OG's deck was the main deck dev, because I felt like that was becoming a trend in both Vayu and Blackwing a lot, stemming from Nationals, was main deck devastation viruses. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think from here on out, a lot of the Blackwing decks for sure is going to be main decking 1 or 2 deck devs. I mean, we'll probably see in later deck lists as we move on through different events, we'll probably start seeing more main deck devs. I mean, the thing is, Frogs is such an annoying deck, and getting that game 1 advantage for them is really insane.
Yeah, no,
for sure. Yeah, for sure, still have to keep their oppression. I mean, that's like the main reason why Vayu Turbo was a tier 1 deck, even if it's 1 copy. I mean, cutting the oppression entirely, which I know was a trend not too long ago, probably not the right answer. No, and also I did watch his deck profile. The side deck, Charged Light Brigade, I'd say, yeah, it's a very good theory. I think for sure he highlighted all the good points. I mean, Hamster's such a good card, but in matchups where Hamster has little to no value, you kind of just want the speed, and that's when he boards in the charge. So I really agree with that. I mean, also, it's kind of annoying when you activate charge and you just mill all your bomb cards. So I guess like game 1, he just realistically wanted a very consistent deck. As for the other decks, I mean, honestly, I'm just really happy to see diversity. Regardless if there was a theoretical big 3 in Edison format, I definitely don't want it to come down to that. I definitely want to see as many decks as possible.
Right, no, I agree. And that's 2 events in a row where we didn't have more than 2 of the same deck type make top 8, you know what I mean? So thought that was very interesting. And even the event before, I guess we had a hybrid Blackwing and a regular Blackwing, as well as a hero Emma and a regular Emma. But if you consider those all different decks, that'd be 8 different ones. So
yeah,
definitely very interesting development there, seeming more diverse than ever. I think the only other thing that I would take away from this is the fact that we've seen Diva Hero twice in a row, right? So
yeah, I think that is also just because of the influx of standard Blackwings or even hybrid Blackwings. Diva Hero does naturally have a pretty good matchup into them. So
right.
I'm sure people just get caught off guard with their OTK potential.
Yeah, no, deck ceiling is always going to be crazy. But let's check out the next event here. Okay, this is our first online event, Deck Devastators 5. And this kind of looks more like people would expect, minus the lack of frogs, I'd say. We had 2 Blackwings, and Blackwing ultimately taking the event down. 2 Vayu Turbo, a Dragon Turbo, a Virus Dragons, which is very interesting considering the popularity of Virus continuing to go up, that entire decks are created around them. 1 Geartown Frog. When I initially saw this, I kind of laughed it off, not really thinking much of it, but as we will see, it is not just a one of random top. So, and then the Well-A-Dad Zombies, that's another Zombies top. I feel like a lot of those variants are similar with high ceilings, and it's just kind of what you package with them. What are your thoughts here with DD5?
I would say realistically there's not too much to take away from this event specifically. I'm actually kind of happy to see standard Blackwings do pretty well. I know it's like kind of a weird take since I was happy for Vayu Turbo also, but it's like these decks aren't dead. I mean, you kind of need them to dominate, so we don't get a lot of random rogue decks running around. But one thing I thought was really weird was all the random one-ofs. I know for online events, they post a lot of your replays, or if not all your replays, so a lot of your opponents can just gauge what you're playing. So pretty much your entire deck list is kind of public if they're paying attention. So with one-ofs, the moment you flip it, it's they don't have to play around that card anymore. But I guess there's the opposite end on that, where there's too many one-ofs and they don't know what to play around at all. But I feel like in that sense, it's more advantageous to do that in an IRL event. But you know, yeah, this is not my tournament that I won. So
yeah, no, and the other thing I found interesting is we see a lot less like 3 to 6 Yada Jar draw trap builds of decks in general, and in this build specifically we only see the one. So
but and I was the Geartown Frogs Ragnark, by the way.
Yes, it was.
Oh wow, he actually got to speak to him when I went to New York. He's really good at frogs. This has been his pet deck for a really long time, so I'm glad he's able to do well with it.
Yep, and he will come up again a little bit later, so we'll talk about him a little bit more. But our next event here is Ultimate Time Wizards Sacramento, and it's 2 Ultimate Time Wizards in a row, 3 out of 4 majors in a row, at least that we have data for, that the Fishborg Frog deck had topped, and 2 in a row that it won. And this one specifically being Denny, it's a little bit different. You know, we don't see the salvages. We see a little bit different monster configuration, as well as 3 upstarts. Very, very modern take on the deck. I kind of like it, actually, especially with how the frog deck plays. And once you filter your frog cards out, big fan of the upstarts. But then also we'd see 3 Blackwing, 2 Vayu Turbo, Zombies, and Hero Frogs. So that's 3 events out of the past 4 also that Zombies have a top spot in, which is interesting. As well as, you know, we see the big 3 doing the big 3 again. We have 2 Frog decks, 2 Vayu Turbo, and 3 Blackwings. So at this point, this is where people are like, oh, okay, are you know, this last RBT and Nationals, are these just, you know, weird one-off events where we're going to have these diverse top cuts and we're back to normal? You know, in my head, I won't lie, I kind of did think that way, where it's like, so many people play different decks that, you know, you're going to have some events where random one-offs do happen, but the big 3 are still the big 3, and those are the best decks. And at this point, that is kind of where my head was at. What were you thinking, Kevin?
Okay, I guess specifically on the Frog list, I did watch his deck profile, and essentially his mindset building deck was just to be able to play every single game, which is good. And that's why he decided not to play the hero engine in the end. I know, like drawing multiple Nurka fusions and not having access to any heroes definitely hurts the deck when you play the Hero Frog version. Yeah, I mean, essentially this deck kind of boils down to just being standard Frog Monarchs, or the idea of the deck, with you know, like an added engine with the Fishborg and the Death Frog. But I like it. Thing is, a lot of these decks that find success is probably just because the advantage is not a lot of people expect it. So all of a sudden, when you're playing a retro format and someone brings something out of left field, no amount of practice could have prepped you for this deck. So I'm sure people misplayed into it, and also him being a really good player in the end definitely was to his advantage, why he won. As for the other top 8s, I guess, like, realistically not surprised, right? Like, if you just think about objectively how Edison format has panned out, these are decks you realistically should be expecting to do well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And yeah, I agree with the Fishborg Frog deck catching some people off guard, especially the deck's really hard to play, and when there's a good pilot with it, it can maneuver into a lot of different situations very well. But as we'll see, the format does continue that this big 3 do like dominating an event sort of thing does not continue, and what we're used to seeing, or what seemed new, is now what we are used to seeing in terms of the diversity. As we'll see here with the next event, we have 8 different decks, RBT New York, and Gladiator Beast of all things winning it. So first thoughts here are, wow, Glad is here to stay. Nats wasn't a fluke. And 8 different decks. What is a big 3 at this point, when basically every major other than that one, other than Sacramento, is showing at least 6 different decks. So quite surprising here. We had the 1 Glad Beast, 1 Blackwing, 1 Amma, 1 Twilight Sworn, 1 Vayu Turbo, the Geartown Frogs, yet again, that's Ragnark, one Hero Frog and one Diva Hero. You can consider, the two Frog decks as the same type, but they are I promise you as a Frog player, Hero Frogs and Yeartown Frogs are very, very different decks. But I'm astonished at how diverse this was, and it wasn't just the top 8, the top 16 was also super diverse. And this Glad Beast build in particular is super interesting with how heavy the trap count was, as well as playing the 3 Guardian Yados. I don't even know what to make of going into future events after I saw this event, because I was like, all right, you know what, maybe the big 3 is no longer the big 3, and there are more decks that are able to compete, just because the issue with the big 3 is none of them dominate everything. All of them have some sort of bad matchups, and all those decks are being exploited more and more. Something else that I know I'm kind of bouncing around everywhere, but something else that caught my eye with this Glad Beast deck was the triple Compulse, because we did see the one of Compulse in that Blackwing deck that won previously, and we saw another deck with Compulse in it. So I don't know if maybe Compulse is also just showing its head more in this format as well. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
I actually got a lot of thoughts about this. I mean, honestly, this is another situation where the Yados tech caught a lot of people off guard. So I'm sure a lot of people wasn't prepared to just be down an additional 2,500 life points versus Glad Beast, a deck that traditionally plays a slow grind game and tries to 1-for-1 you, and then tries to play for their big fusion plays. So yeah, the Yados kind of accelerates the game in a way where I'm sure not a lot of people prepared for it. I also naturally, deck dev does hurt the deck a lot, but with the 3 proving grounds, you can kind of mitigate that. And this deck also looks kind of similar to a hero beat deck, and then all of a sudden random staples Cap Dust Shoot realistically doesn't even work versus this, because when they Dust Shoot you and you show a handful of spells and traps, and one of them is the proving ground, then all of a sudden your Dust Shoot doesn't really do too much, right? As for the other decks, I mean, honestly, yeah, really cool to see all the other decks top. To be honest, I don't know about you, but we kind of meme on Glad Beast a lot as a community. So after seeing them win an event, you have to respect them now. I also did learn about a really weird technical play. I mean, let me know if this is true, but I heard that basically when you attack with a Gladiator Beast and your opponent says okay to attack, you can activate Compulse to change the amount of monsters in the field, and then redeclare an attack with a Gladiator Beast. So in this situation where, let's say they have a set Raikou, and you attack with a Gladiator Beast, and they say okay, you can Compulse their Raikou, and then redeclare your attack for a direct attack, and they can't Battle Fader you because it's a redeclare. I don't know if that's true, but I heard about that from one of our judge friends.
I believe it is, and I think it's the same with battle traps and stuff too. I don't think they can use them on a redeclaration.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, when you play standard decks like Vayu Turbo, and they have Raikou plus a battle trap, realistically they're just gonna Raikou pop your dude. So they're not expecting the Compulse where you Compulse their guy and then you declare a direct attack, and all of a sudden they lost their trap. You get something like a Bestie or something.
That is a really cool interaction. Didn't even think about it until you brought it up.
Yeah, and then as you can see from the side deck, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen as events start rolling, as soon as we start going to more events where there's an insane amount of frog hate. You can see double possessed Dark Soul, triple Master Restrict, anti-spell. So yeah, frogs are getting targeted pretty bad right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely in my head feel like frogs and Blackwings are the decks to beat. The issue is with Blackwings, there's not a lot of hard hate for it, whereas there's a ton for frogs. So, and like you were saying, the cool thing about this deck is that I only see 4 cards in here that get hit by deck dev, right? Which is crazy, because it basically makes it useless against your deck, whereas a normal list that's playing Test Tigers and a lot more of the little guys, can actually get hit by that. So very interesting comment, and it makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, after this event, my head was like, all right, Edison, I was one of the believers. It was pretty much solved, 3-deck format, and a couple other decks could compete but weren't there. And as we'll continue to see, it's more often than not that we have these very spread out top cuts. So with this next event here, we had Peak of the Big 6. And this is where I was talking about how Virus is picking up a lot. So we had 2 Virus Vayu decks, one of them winning. And as you can see here, you have the triple Epidemic in the side and triple Deck Dev in the main. Which absolutely, and just so you know, against Vayu and Blackwings, Deck Dev is still a good card. It's not bad versus them, and then it's also just really good at game 1 versus frogs, right? And then you have one standard Blackwing, one Hero Frog, two Frog Monarchs, which is much different than the Fishborg deck. These decks are playing the Salos, triple Caius, multiple Rysas. It's a true Monarch deck, and we have two of them top, one of them being Fraser Smith. So I'm curious to see what's going on with Frogs and why we keep seeing all these variations off of the Hero Frog deck. We have another Glad Beast top. I see that I misspelt Beast, but we're too deep to fix that. And then one Dragon Turbo. And yeah, Dragon Turbo I feel like performs so much better online than it does in person, as this is another online event.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically what I was saying earlier. I mean, we're just probably going to see an insane amount of frog hate in the future. This deck basically screams frogs can't play at all with the 3 virus. I mean, another beautiful thing about virus is you get hand knowledge for 3 turns, which is really important for a deck like Value Turbo, where you can just dish out a lot of damage right off the bat. Where, I mean, if you catch your opponent opening slow or you nuke your entire hand, game's kind of like over on the spot, which is really crazy because that card's at 3.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, yeah. And then as for the other decks, for the Frog Monarch decks, this was actually right after I forgot what the tournament was called. It was like a Edison World Championship qualifier, an online qualifier or something like that, where there was a stun frog list that won the whole thing. It was basically Frog Monarchs, and they played cards like Armsea Hunter, but essentially it was like a control deck. So I think Fraser's list definitely derived from that. I don't know if that is the strongest frog deck in the future, but because like that was a reason why a lot of people started playing Hero Frog, right? Because we want to add additional layers to the Frog Monarch strategy instead of just getting one shot by pulling the rug or something like that, right? But I don't know. I think because everyone is trying different decks, all of a sudden we have gaps in matchups where you can just catch someone off with a deck like regular Frog Monarchs and do well with that, and then on the flip side we have people that are doubling down on the frog hate in the main deck, and yeah, they're getting in a really weird spot in the format, to be honest.
Yeah, I also think part of it might come down to the fact that Hero Frogs requiring you to see basically 3 different engines, tributes, frogs, and heroes, as well as hopefully seeing miracles, versus just tributes and frogs is probably another appeal to that deck. But yeah, and something else, like you were saying, I just realized this virus Vayu deck has so much frog hate post side. You even have pulling the rugs, oppression, skill drains, like, oh
yeah,
my gosh.
They literally can't play. They just have to draw one of what, like 10 cards, and it's kind of over for them.
Yeah, a lot
because
of
once you connect any of those cards versus in the early game, they can't recover because frogs need to start, and those are all cards that stop them from starting.
Right, because first turn setup and then second, third is when they really start playing. So stopping their second turn that way can be huge swing. But yeah, once again, this is an online event though, so definitely some different mindsets when it comes to deck building and trying things. I just thought it was, we had the virus dragon deck, and now we're seeing 2 virus Vayu decks top. And maybe that's just the direction we're going in, where these virus cards are going to start seeing a lot more main deck play. And so we'll go to the next event here. We have our final event of the season before YCS Niagara, and that is Ultimate Time Wizard Lille. I believe this was France, right?
Yeah.
So we had Machina Control take it down, and I believe it's its first ever, at least in-person, major win. And once again, a very diverse top cut with 0 Vayu and 0 frogs. So we have Machina Control, 1 Blackwing, 1 Rhino Control, which this deck's so cool. I saw the deck list of it earlier. 2 Light Sworn variants, 1 Diva Hero Beat, 1 X Sabers, which I believe this is its first time breaking on the scene in a major way, and 1 Diva Zombie, which, we kind of see Diva Hero or Zombie variants kind of often take a top cut spot in most of these events. But yeah, a lot of interesting X Sabers, Rhino Control, and Machina Control, and Diva Hero Beat, all decks that don't typically top, I'd say. Maybe you'd get a random Machina Control here and there, or a random Diva Hero Beat here and there. But yeah, all of them taking top spots and seeing 0 frogs and 0 Vayu Turbo. Just, it has me like, what the heck is going on with Edison right now?
I mean, I guess probably their local meta does not play a lot of frogs, or they just got eaten up alive by all the hate that people are citing in nowadays. I mean, I played machines before. I like the deck a lot. I mean, it just naturally has a pretty decent matchup versus Bayou Turbo and Blackwings, which is very surprising because not a lot of decks can really boast about a good matchup versus them. But the thing is, like, they sacrificed their frog matchup entirely, where you kind of don't want to get dupe blocked and lose. So I'm sure that's where their side deck came in. Seeing the Rhino control top is really crazy, but I mean, to be honest, there's a local player in our Chicago scene. His name is Andy, who loves Rhino control. So I mean, shout out to him. I know he was jumping for joy in Discord when he saw the deck top, and I guess shout out to X-Sabers. I mean, this is also one of Marcus' favorite decks. So it's really nice to see a deck that's presumably, I don't know, maybe like tier 2, tier 3, something like that, break into top 8. I mean, I don't know. I'm excited for these type of decks. I personally don't want to see too much Blackwings and value top just because they play so many angry cards that prevents me from playing. So,
yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's definitely interesting because we see less and less of the big 3 dominating events, as you can see, including nationals since nationals. There's really only been one event where the big 3 really took over, and outside of that, we've had these very diverse 7-8 different deck top cuts for top 8, and a lot of different winners. I think the only duplicate winner, maybe I'm wrong, but I think the only duplicate was the 2 Dream Frog or Fishborg Frog decks.
Even so, all 3 of those decks, the one from RBT, the one from Texas, and the one from Sacramento, they all had a slight different variation where the decks angled differently. So like Sacramento played for full consistency,
right?
And then the one from Maryland, the RBT, that one played for more control, and then the one in Texas, that one had enough utility where you can switch between the control playstyle and the explosive playstyle just because of the salvage.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the fact that also like with I believe there's a virus value that one an event and a regular value, but I still consider those different decks because just the way they're playing and their goals are a little bit different. But yeah, I guess post these events, Kevin, I have some trends and takeaways, and I just want to hear your thoughts on these that I've put together. So the first one is Gladiator Beast are here to stay. It was not a fluke. Deck actually seems pretty good, and I'm not gonna lie to you, this whole format, I had zero interest in ever touching this deck, just because I thought a deck that revolves around the battle phase, just there's no way that deck being so reliant on attacking and attacks resolving could ever be good. But I'm starting to think more and more that I'm wrong. So very interested in trying that deck. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, not only does the deck heavily rely on connecting attacks, they also need to connect their normal summon, and this is a format where standard decks are probably playing, 2 copies of Bottomless, 2-3 copies of Dimensional Prison, and not to, not including all the discard traps. So it's just where can you connect a Glad Beast in theory, but I don't know. I mean, they just keep doing well, so realistically, we actually have to respect them. And the cool thing about Glad Beast is all the random decks that are popping up, such as like Amaryllis, and then all the frogs, they're increasing popularity. Glad Beast actually has a pretty decent matchup versus them, just because they don't play all of the angry cards that beat Glad Beast, like what Value and Blackman play, like Oppression. They naturally can beat them in battle via Colludes. So yeah, it's very interesting because I think we're going to like a triangle type of mindset where the moment everyone tries to play like the fancy stuff, then it's like, okay, everyone's going to play Blackwings and values. Then when that happens, everyone's going to play some more fancy stuff. And yeah, we're like going in a complete triangle right now. I think it's very funny because essentially all the decks that are doing well right now, minus Amaryllis, were the OG decks when Edison first started. So like everyone loved Glad Beast, everyone loved Light Sworns, everyone loved Frog Monarchs. So, but also now they're pretty good. So
yeah, they're all resurging. And like you said, maybe it just has to do with people playing more hate, and then also the format being more diverse, making it a lot weirder for decks that kind of account for everything. My next take is virus popularity is way up. This isn't even really a take, it just is kind of true.
It's just true.
And I think this is going to really make it hard for me to play decks that I typically choose to play, like frogs or fairy variants. Because both those decks struggle against this, so it's definitely something I'll have to take into consideration.
I mean, that's kind of the reason why I decided to play quick draw machines. Just because it was kind of annoying when they flipped either oppression or deck dev on me, and I'm playing quick draw. I have to drop my entire hand. So yeah, definitely don't like that card. I mean, and also if you play versus me in tournaments, please don't flip that card on me. I kind of want to play the game.
Yeah, be nice to Kevin. My next take here is the big three is becoming less dominant. Though I still believe at this point in time, there is a big three and it's still hero variants. I'll say, I'm not even gonna say hero frog anymore. Hero or frog variants, my bad. Not even gonna say hero frog anymore, just frog variants. Vayu turbo variants, which maybe this Vayu virus deck's the way to play it. Maybe it's straight Vayu. And then Blackwing are still gonna be your big three decks. However, it's becoming more and more apparent. And if this trend continues, I say another 2 or 3 events, I don't even think we'll be able to say big three anymore, because if you have 6, 7, 8 different decks topping every event, and sometimes it's not even one of the big three, then at some point you can't even say that.
Probably my favorite part about Edison is that there's a lot of diversity in the format, naturally, just because people just play the decks that they like. I know the Glad player who won RBT New York, I believe that might have been his first big tournament. I don't remember, but basically he took his favorite deck and his favorite card in Guardian Yados and won the event. So we're starting to see a lot of those random things happen. Because realistically, if everyone were to try hard, I'm pretty sure everyone will be playing a big three deck.
Yeah, I'm starting, like, I'd like to think the same, but I'm starting to think more and more maybe not. But we'll just have to continue to see how the format continues to develop. Next take, other frog variants are becoming more popular than Hero Frog. I feel like it's less and less that we see Hero Frog, and more that we're seeing we're seeing regular Frog Monarchs take 2 spots to Hero Frog's 1 in a top cut. We're seeing Hero Frog not top, and then Gear Town Frogs topping. We're seeing Dream Frogs having more success in the Hero Frog decks in terms to winning events. That I don't know if it's just the consistency issue to see all the engines. I don't know if it's just people, like you were saying before, wanting to try new things. But more and more, I just think you shouldn't be preparing for Hero Frogs rather than just targeting the Frog engine.
Yeah, part of the reason why I think this is a thing is just because we have so many experienced Frog players in the community, and we're realizing that Substitute is not a balanced card where just getting a dupe block shouldn't be the only thing you can expect from it. Nowadays, like, you're just getting random beaters via Death Frog, I don't know, Flip Flop Frog, like all these random frog techs are starting to show in our meta, and people are just getting caught off guard by that. It really unlocks a new level of frogs where traditional cards, I-sided Zombie World prior to all these frog variants getting really popular. Where nowadays, like, I don't even know that's a good card anymore. Like, pulling the rug might not have that much value if everyone's more reliant on, like Substitutes. But I don't know. I like the diversity in frogs, but it's a deck that Substitute is only here to do like evil things, so it's not a fair deck.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Substitute is a very it doesn't feel like an Edison card.
Yeah, like, games just become so wonky when frogs can just showcase their entire deck with all these new random techs. I mean, I've been messing around with frogs myself, and it's really insane things the deck can do. Like, I've been playing every single frog variant. I don't know, like, it's really insane, but definitely not a fan of all the angry cards people are playing versus us now. So I think that's probably gonna keep us in check.
I like how you refer to them as angry cards.
I mean, it's a mouthful to keep saying, like, oppression, deck dev, what was it? The Possessed Dark Soul. There's so many crazy cards versus us.
There is. But the next trend I wanted to point out was that draw trap popularity is way down. It's becoming less and less frequent where we'll see like 3+ draw traps in a deck. You'll still see them. I do think it's good to kind of keep your opponents in check by playing 1 to 2 in a lot of decks that play traps. But less and less do we see like the 4, 5, 6 draw card decks. I think that was like really good when Hector played them at the time, because it just caught a lot of people off guard. But I think people are kind of coming down to earth, and no one's like blind popping cards, so you're almost rather having like the real live traps more often than the draw traps. And I think that's something that'll kind of flux in and out of the format depending on how people are playing in the back row.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also something that was drawn inspiration from like Gold format, where I believe not that long ago in Gold format people were playing, you know, like 2-3 draw traps just because it was a very slow format, and just by naturally setting a lot of back row, you force your opponent to play a little bit differently. The problem with playing multiple draw traps now, and if you're showing your opponent that you're playing multiple draw traps, is they just turn on the engine and they just go crazy on you. And most of the time, if you commit too hard into draw traps, then you literally have no defense and you're just taking random damage. But I don't know. I think it's for sure something that the moment people are reducing draw traps, we may or may not see some more later on, and then people still get baited by it, and then it's like a complete circle.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I just think that also kind of how you were saying people will just get too aggressive on you. I think the format's also just getting faster. So, you know, waiting to see cards for an additional turn or two can be devastating, and, you know, especially when you get in these top deck game states, drawing it does not feel good. But then I guess I believe it's my last takeaway. Do you think Edison format's solved? I'm starting to think it's not. Whereas, you know, if you asked me a week before Nats, I would have told you format's pretty much solved. Even a week or two after Nats, I would have told you format's pretty much solved. You have your top 3 decks and everything else, and not a whole lot of variation in their builds. But I'm starting to think that, you know, maybe I was calling it too early. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, anecdotally, Edison is not solved. If you look at our TGS monthlies, we don't have a single meta deck that won, minus Eric winning the first one playing Value Turbo, I believe.
Chai won with Blackwings also.
Oh, and then Blackwings. But majority of it was won with Rogue decks.
Yep, 4 out of 6 of them.
Yeah, so for sure Edison isn't solved. I mean, the thing is, like I said earlier, people just play like the decks they like. So no one's gonna try hard. Not everybody's gonna try hard and just play any of the big 3 decks. You're for sure gonna see Amaryllis players. You're gonna see quick draw players, machines, you know, etc. GBs.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. And then with these trends, Kevin, you and I are both going to YCS Niagara and playing in the Ultimate Time Wizard event. We're actually driving out together. And so I wanted to share my thoughts on what decks I think are going to top 8 Niagara. And then after I run through these, I want to hear your take on it as well. So here I said 1 Hero Frog, just because I still think, even though all the frog variants get played, I personally still at this moment believe it's the best variant. So therefore I still think it will take a spot, even though it's going to have less representation than it otherwise would have. I have 1 Blackwings, making sense. There's, you know, it's becoming less and less common where we see multiple of the same big 3 decks topping. So I kind of spread them out here a little bit. Got 1 of the Fishborg Frog deck. I think this is right there neck and neck with the Hero Frogs. And if I'm going to give Hero Frogs a spot, I figured I also have to give them a spot. 1 Amaryllis. I just feel like this deck does well everything. It just won our Chicagoland monthly recently. It had 2 top spots at Nats. It's topped a few events in between. And especially it being at Niagara, being so close to New York, and I know New York's kind of like the central hub for Amaryllis players.
Yeah.
I expect at least 1 to make top cut. 1 Virus Value. I know this is a new development, but the fact that, I mean, just look at my predictions for top cut, and you'd say Virus Value has a good matchup against all those minus Blackwings. So that kind of explains itself. I think it's part of the trend here. 1 Standard Value Turbo, just because it's kind of like 50-50-ish against everything, even its bad matchups like 45-55s. And I still think it's one of the top 3, so got to give it a slot. And we have 1 of the Standard Frog Monarch. So I guess you could say this is a 3rd frog deck for me as a frog player. I'm sure my bias is showing. But it taking 2 spots at the recent peak of the beak, I think is going to get a lot more people looking into it. If a guy like Frazier is on this deck, it's definitely got to have some merit in my opinion, because he is just a frog genius. So that's my opinion on that. And then for the last spot, who else other than the most recent winner of RBT New York, as well as having top cut spots across many of these events, Gladiator Beast.
Gladiator Best.
Gladiator Best. Yeah, I had to say that earlier. But yeah, I think we're going to get another super diverse top cut. I got 8 different decks here. If you want to count some of the frog decks similar, you can maybe say 6 or 7 different decks. But yeah, I think that trend's going to continue. What do you think? What are your thoughts? What are your predictions?
Yeah, I mean, definitely going to just echo a majority of your placements. I mean, as a quick draw player, I would for sure love to see a quick draw do well in top 8. I for sure think Berries are gonna win, because I think they have a pretty good matchup versus all this field.
It's the deck devs that are floating around everywhere that terrify
Yeah,
the fairy
okay.
players.
All right. How about this? Let's all handshake and not use deck dev. How about that? Everybody, let's play the game. No
Just
no
warp the
angry
format
cards.
really quick.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone gentleman's agreement, and let's just let like all the random decks top. But I think Emeralds might naturally just have a very big edge to top this format, because I know that dude, apologies for forgetting his name, but he top dated nationals with it, and he's from Canada, so I'm sure he's gonna have a pretty good showing.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. And then I know Nick and all of his guys in New York. And then, yeah, the guy who top aided with the hero AMA build. Lot of people coming to this event who play AMA. So definitely expect that if you're going to AMA or going to Niagara. But yeah, this is just the Q1 meta report. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks again, Kevin, for coming on with me, and maybe I'll have you on for Q2 as well. Well, 3 months from now when we look at the landscape of Edison format.